Canto 22. Summary. At some point during the previous conversation with Statius, the threesome had passed through the gate to the sixth terrace. The fifth P has been brushed from Dante's brow. The fifth beatitude concerning thirsting for righteousness, Beati qui sitiunt, has been sung, opposing the avaricious thirst for riches. As they go on, the Roman poets continue to talk. Virgil asks Statius why he was in the terrace of the avaricious, wondering at how a man of such good sense could be caught in that particular sin. Statius answers that it was not for the sin of avarice, but for its opposite excess, that of prodigality, that he was disciplined on the previous terrace. In this, Dante is drawing on the Aristotelian notion of the virtuous mean. Avarice and prodigality are the two opposites between which the virtue of generosity is found. This helps explain the combination of the misers and spendthrifts in the fourth circle of hell, where Statius says he would have ended up but for the grace of God. Unexpectedly, that grace came through Virgil's own writing. Statius quotes a passage from the Aeneid 3 and explains that those words brought him to a right understanding of his lavish spending. Virgil then asks how he began to follow the fisherman, that is, how he became a Christian. Statius again refers back to Virgil's own words, this time the famous prophecy in the fourth eclogue, specifically the line of that poem that says, "A new progeny descends from heaven on high." There is a long tradition of seeing these verses as referring to the birth of Christ, as the testimony of Statius exemplifies. He explains how much he admired the resilience and joy of the Christians suffering great persecution and how he grieved for their pain. He was baptized secretly for fear of reprisal. For his cowardice, he spent a long time on the terrace of the slothful. He then asks Virgil who is with him in limbo, and Virgil answers with a list of the great pagan poets, both of antiquity and the classical period. They continue their conversation as Dante takes pleasure in listening. However, they soon come upon a tree, and a voice from within tells them they cannot taste its fruit. It continues to describe several examples of temperance, the virtue that counters the vicious habit purged on this terrace, gluttony. Canto 22. The Gluttons. The angel had already stayed behind, the angel that turned us to the sixth wheel, having shaved from my brow one of the blows. Those who keep their desire toward righteousness, he had said, were beati, and his words filled that out with sitiunt and not else. Thus, more lightly than through other outlets, I walked on, such that without any strain I followed the swift spirits up above. When Virgil began, "Love always kindles another love when kindled by virtue, as long as its flame appears outwardly. Wherefore, from the hour Juvenal came down among us into the limbo of hell, and made obvious your fondness for me, my goodwill had been tethered more to you than ever was to a person not seen, so that now these stairs to me appear short. But tell me, and as a friend, pardon me, if overconfidence loosens my reins, and reflect some with me now as a friend. How was it avarice found in your breast a place in the midst of so much good sense, given how full your diligence made you?" These words moved Statius to laugh a little at first. After, he answered, "All your words are a precious token of love to me. It is true, very often things appear that provide a false basis for doubting because the real reasons are hidden. Your question confirms to me you believe I was avaricious in that life there, perhaps because of the wheel where I was. Now know that avarice was so very far removed from me, and that this excess thousands of lunar rounds have disciplined. And if I had not straightened out my aims when I understood what you there called out, as one angered at our human nature, why do you, O sacred hunger for gold, not govern the appetites of mortals? I would feel turning round the wretched jousts. Then I noticed hands can open their wings too wide in spending, and I repented of that as well as of other evils. How many will rise, with manicured hair, through ignorance which takes away from them repentance and life and on that last day. And know that the guilt that strikes back against any sin through its direct opposite, here together with it dries its greenness. Therefore, if I've been among these people who weep their avarice to purge myself, it was because of the opposite vice. Now when you sang of the vicious weapons of the double sadness of Jocasta, said the singer of the bucolic songs. "From that which Clio touches there with you, it seems you are not yet made faithful by faith, without which good deeds do not suffice. If this is so, what sun or what candle so undarkened you, that you raised your sails thereafter following the fishermen?" And he said to him, "You first directed me to Parnassus, to drink in its grottos, and you first enlightened my way to God. You did as one who goes along at night, who bears the lamp behind, no help to him, but makes the people who come after wise. When you said, 'The centuries are renewed, justice returns in the first age of man, and a new offspring comes down from heaven.' Through you I was poet, through you Christian. But that you may better see what I sketch, I will stretch out my hand to color it. Already the whole world was so pregnant with the true belief disseminated by messengers of the eternal King, and your word, which I touched on earlier, was resonating with the new preachers, whence I made a rule of visiting them. They came more and more to seem so holy that, when Domitian persecuted them, their laments were not without my own tears, and during the time I lived in that place I helped them, and their righteous ways of life made me disparage every other sect. And before I led the Greeks to the streams of Thebes in poetry, I was baptized, but through fear I was a secret Christian. For a long time I was seeming pagan, and this tepidness made me circle around the fourth circle more than 4 centuries. You, therefore, who lifted the covering that hid me from the great good I speak of, while we still have a ways yet to ascend, tell me, our ancient Terence, Varius, Plautus, and Caecilius, where they are, if you know, if they're damned, and in what place." "They, Perseus, myself, and many more," my leader answered him, "are with that Greek the Muses nursed more than any other, in the first circle of the blind prison. Often we speak concerning the mountain that forever keeps with it our nursemaids. Euripides is with us, Antiphon, Simonides, Agathon, and more Greeks who once bedecked their brow with the laurel. There are seen Antigone, Argia, and Diphyle, those of your people, and Ismene, as sad as she had been. There is seen the one who showed Langia, and there is the daughter of Tiresias, Thetis, Didamia with her sisters." At once both of the poets fell silent, looking around with new attentiveness, set free from the climbing and from the walls. And already 4 handmaids of the day were left behind. The 5th was at the pole, still directing its blazing horn upward, when my leader said, "I believe we should turn our right shoulders to the outer edge, circling the mountain as is our habit." Thus the custom there became our banner, and we took our way with less suspicion on account of that worthy soul's ascent. They were going in front, and I alone behind, listening to their discussion, which gave me insight into making poems. But soon the sweet conversation was stopped by a tree that we found in the middle of the way, with fruit sweet and good to smell. And as the fir tree narrows branch by branch, higher up, so that one did going down, I believe so people could not climb up. On the side where our pathway was closed off, a clear liquor fell down from the high cliff and was spreading itself above the leaves. The 2 poets came up close to the tree, and a voice cried out from within the leaves, "You will have a complete lack of this food." Then it said, "Mary thought of the wedding more, how it could be honored and complete, than of her own mouth, which now answers you. The ancient Roman women were content with water for their drink. Also Daniel disparaged food and gained understanding. The first age was as beautiful as gold, and made acorns savory with hunger, and every rivulet nectar with thirst. Honey and locusts were the provisions that nourished the Baptist in the desert. Therefore he is glorious, and as great as is revealed to you by the gospel.